हमारा बच्चा चला गया, एक ही बच्चा लूंग थी वो हमारी।
War has a strange habit. It never stays where it starts. It spreads. First to borders, then to cities, then to trade, and eventually to people who never signed up for it. 3 Indian sailors learned that this week. India lodged a strong protest. The United States justified its actions, and everybody already knows what happens next. Nothing. Why? Because this story didn't begin with 3 Indian sailors. It didn't begin in the Gulf of Oman. It didn't even begin with Iran. It began with a question humanity has never really answered. When does trade stop being trade and become war? Remember World War II? Before Japan attacked Pearl Harbor and essentially forced US to enter the war, America was already squeezing Japan. Not with bombs, with oil. Japan needed oil. America cut it off. From Washington's perspective, it was economic pressure. From Tokyo's perspective, it was strangulation. The shooting came later. Britain did the same to Germany. Germany targeted shipping supplying Britain. Naval warfare has always blurred the line between commerce and conflict. Because wars do not run on patriotism, they run on fuel, money, steel, food, supply chains. You don't need to carry a missile to become part of a war. Sometimes carrying the fuel is enough. And that is where this story becomes uncomfortable. The tanker that was struck, the MT Settebello, was accused by the United States of transporting Iranian oil in violation of its blockade. US Central Command says the vessel failed to comply with directions and was disabled during enforcement operations. 3 Indian sailors died. Which means the real question is no longer, was the ship a target? The real question is, how do you stop it? Because even war has rules. Not because war is moral. War is not moral. War is what remains when diplomacy fails, when negotiation fails, when reason fails, which is exactly why rules exist. There is a difference between stopping a ship and stopping it this way. A radio warning, an interception, a boarding team, a warning shot across the bow, a disabling shot. Navies have used all of these methods for centuries. The United States chose 2 Hellfire missiles into the engine room. Effective? Probably. Proportional? That is the question. Imagine a traffic violation, and the response is a tank shell. The objective may be achieved, but the method changes everything. And then comes the part that is even harder to explain. After the strike, sailors were in the water. 21 survived, 3 did not. Long before international law, long before the United Nations, sailors understood one rule. If a man is drowning, you pull him out. Friend, enemy, doesn't matter. Yet the rescue effort fell largely to Omani authorities, and this is where the story stops being about a tanker. Because India protested, strongly, publicly. Jaishankar spoke to Marco Rubio. The US envoy was summoned. Formal objections were lodged. And yet, everybody already knows how this ends. Nothing. No sanctions. No emergency global response. No coalition forming overnight. No international pressure campaign. Why? Because the issue is no longer law. The issue is power. The uncomfortable reality is that America can do things few countries can. It can patrol oceans thousands of kilometers from home, enforce blockades far from its borders, influence trade routes, oil prices, shipping lanes, And it can do all of this while remaining largely insulated from the consequences. That is not a criticism of America, it is a description of power. And perhaps that is the bigger story of the Trump era. Not Donald Trump himself, but the amount of power concentrated in one administration. One election, one White House, one president. And suddenly, countries across the world are adjusting trade routes, oil purchases, shipping decisions, and foreign policy calculations. The missiles may be fired in the Gulf of Oman, but the consequences travel everywhere. Here is the thought nobody really wants to say aloud. If Iran had fired 2 missiles into a commercial tanker in Omani waters, killing 3 foreign sailors, the reaction would have been immediate. Emergency meetings, condemnations, calls for accountability. When the United States does it, the debate becomes whether it was technically justified. That difference matters a lot. For decades, we were told the world operates on a rules-based order. Maybe, but every once in a while, reality reminds us of something older, something simpler, something far more uncomfortable. The world is not always a courtroom. Sometimes it still looks like a playground, a very large playground, where the strongest boy gets more chances, more excuses, more benefit of the doubt, and sometimes gets to explain what the rules were supposed to mean in the first place. You were watching Fault Lines. I'm Abhijit.